You're lying in bed. The lights are off. You've checked the locks. You know you're alone. You know there's nothing under the bed. And yet some part of your brain is still listening, still scanning, still waiting for something to move in the corner of the room. You know it's irrational. You know there's no threat, but you can't quite switch it off. Here's the strange part. That feeling isn't a glitch. It isn't anxiety. And it isn't your imagination being dramatic. It's a piece of software that's been running in the human brain for over 300,000 years, and it never got the memo that the danger is gone. For most of human history, the fear you feel right now would have kept you alive. The night wasn't just dark, it was lethal. Leopards, hyenas, and every other nocturnal predator on the savannah could see perfectly fine once the sun went down. Your ancestors, on the other hand, had eyesight about as useful as a phone at 1% battery. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have documented something chilling. People who wander away from the fire at night are, even today, significantly more likely to be killed. Not historically, now, in real time. So when your brain tells you something is off about the dark, it's not being paranoid. It's quoting a survival manual that's been passed down through roughly 15,000 generations. But here's where it gets interesting, because humans didn't just survive the dark, we beat it. Somewhere around 1 million years ago, at a place called Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, our ancestors figured out how to control fire. And fire did something no other species had ever managed. It carved a circle of safety directly out of the most dangerous hours of the day. A campfire creates a radius of roughly 30 feet where predators simply will not enter. Outside that circle, you were prey. Inside it, for the first time in the history of life on Earth, a primate could sit in total darkness and feel safe. That should have been the end of the story. Problem solved, right? Wrong, because fixing the danger and fixing the fear turned out to be two completely different projects running on two completely different timelines. Fast forward to today. You have electric light in every room, a phone flashlight in your pocket, streetlights outside your window, and a locked door with a deadbolt. Statistically, you are almost certainly safer alone in a dark bedroom in a modern city than your ancestors ever were, sitting 3 feet from a fire in the middle of the Pleistocene. And yet, the fear hasn't budged. If anything, some of us feel it more sharply now than we would if we were actually camping in the wild with an actual reason to be scared. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If the threat is gone, why is the fear still fully loaded? The answer comes down to something psychologists call prepared learning. In the 1970s, a psychologist named Martin Seligman noticed something odd about human phobias. We are wildly more likely to develop intense fears of things like snakes, spiders, heights, and darkness than we are of things that are statistically far more dangerous, like cars or electrical outlets. Why would your brain be terrified of a garden snake but completely relaxed around a 2-ton vehicle capable of killing you in half a second? Seligman's answer was that evolution doesn't teach fear the same way it teaches you to ride a bike. Some fears are pre-installed. They're baked directly into the nervous system before you're even born, because the ancestors who had to learn the hard way that snakes in darkness were dangerous simply weren't around long enough to have kids. The ones who came preloaded with caution were. And this shows up ridiculously early. Studies on infants have found that even babies who have never had a single negative experience with darkness or heights still show measurable stress responses, elevated heart rate, changes in breathing, when placed in those conditions. Nobody taught them to be afraid. They didn't need to be taught. The fear was already sitting there, waiting, like a program installed at the factory. Darkness strips away your dominant sense, vision, and suddenly your brain has to run on incomplete information. And an ancient brain built by millions of years of predator pressure treats incomplete information as a 5-alarm emergency every single time, regardless of whether you're in a cave in Kenya or a Marriott hotel room with the Wi-Fi password taped to the desk.
There's another piece to this that almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important one. Fear in the dark wasn't just about predators. It was about being alone. Remember that circle of firelight? It wasn't just physical safety. It was social safety. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years recording conversations among the Juhwansee Bushmen of the Kalahari and found that at night, around the fire, 81% of conversation shifted to storytelling, myths, and shared experience. The fire wasn't just a barrier against claws and teeth. It was where humans stopped being solitary animals and became a group. Darkness, alone, without that group, was doubly dangerous, because you'd lost both your eyesight and your social buffer at the same time. And that's exactly the piece we've quietly lost in the modern world. You can flip a switch and banish every predator with electricity, but you can't flip a switch and undo hundreds of thousands of years of your nervous system associating darkness with isolation. When you're lying awake at 2 in the morning, alone, in a locked, well-lit, perfectly safe apartment, your amygdala doesn't know any of that context. It doesn't know about deadbolts or smartphones or emergency services 3 minutes away. It just knows 2 things that used to always travel together. It's dark and you're alone. And for 300,000 years, that exact combination meant one thing: danger is close and nobody is coming to help you. So the fear you feel isn't a malfunction. It's not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's an incredibly old alarm system, built with genuinely good intentions, still faithfully running a threat assessment for a world that mostly doesn't exist anymore. We conquered the night with fire, then with candles, then gas lamps, then Thomas Edison's light bulb. And technologically speaking, the dark stopped being our enemy over a century ago. But biology doesn't update on the same schedule as infrastructure. Your circuitry is still running Pleistocene code on a body that lives in the 21st century. And that gap between how safe you actually are and how safe your nervous system thinks you are is exactly where that unshakable feeling in the dark comes from.
So tonight, when you're lying there, lights off, listening to a silence that suddenly feels a little too loud, remember what's actually happening. You're not broken. You're not being irrational. You are, for just a moment, feeling exactly what every single one of your ancestors felt for 300,000 years, in the one part of your brain that never got the update that the fire won.